Hey!
We figured it out, fellas.
Are we live? Are we officially live?
We're live. I see it up in the corner.
Yep.
Oh, I see it. Yep.
Technical difficulties are over.
Third time's a charm. We got
Third time's the charm.
Oh, oops, I was going to put this on. Michigan Outdoor Report.
Oh, I thought that was a Sparty hat.
PU. Ah, come on, man.
That's my seat.
Oh, yeah. Good idea.
First thing it sees is not real pleasant.
Well, alrighty, guys. We've got 48 days till season starts this year. We've got special guest Brad Atwood joining us from the Wildgame Pursuit tonight, and we're going to go over different tactics used for targeting whitetail on pressured public lands. So, Brad, do you want to go ahead and kind of tell us about yourself?
Yeah. I live here in White Cloud, Michigan. Pretty much grew up hunting and fishing my whole life, obviously, and always primarily hunted public land. I grew up, my parents had 20 acres, but growing up, 20 acres still isn't much. So my dad mainly hunted there, and I just kind of ventured off and scouted all around Newaygo County and stuff, and learned how, what sign to look for, what to, best areas to find, and, sign and everything else. Just obviously my dad took me out and showed me his areas, and then once I got my driver's license, and stuff, then I kind of started even scouting further around the county, and then even outside Newaygo County, getting further off the more I hunted and stuff. And then after high school, obviously continued hunting, and then 3 years ago, I think, I started the Wildgame Pursuit, and got a couple of team members to start filming, same as you guys do, and we've been making videos and hunting, and I started doing a lot more out-of-state hunts and going down to Ohio and Kentucky and Tennessee and South Dakota, doing a lot of all DIY public land hunting, and just going down there using Onyx maps and scouting and just putting all the work, and have managed to shoot a couple nice deer, here in Michigan, and out-of-state bucks too. So.
Do you guys want to? So, do you guys just want to get into it as far as scouting, or is there any questions as far as Brad?
I got a couple things for Brad. So let's say what's your method? What are you looking for when you go to a new area? Just give me a little let's say you're not hunting an area with crop fields and you're going into some tight properties, public land. I'm a hunter in public land.
Yeah.
I kind of want to get a couple ideas of what are you looking for?
I like to, depending on the type of year, I like to see how much pressure's in the area. How are there a lot of sign of other hunters, a lot of stands hung, is there, a lot of, you can see beaten down foot traffic coming right from the parking areas. You can, obviously, sometimes you go into a new area and you just don't know, you can't look at Onyx and say, well, there's 10 other hunters in there, until you show up and put eyes on it and see. So that's the toughest thing sometimes about a new area, is going in there and, somebody might have been hunting this tree. I might look and find a good spot that looks good on Onyx. Well, I might walk back there and somebody has a stand hung there and they've hunted there for 20 years, so obviously putting eyes on something. But obviously I like to use, like I said, I like to use Onyx. That's personally the app I use, and I couldn't tell you how many pins and marks I have all over my Onyx maps of, scrapes and rubs and pinch points. And so that's another thing that I like to look for too, is I like to hunt thickets and swamps. I like to get as close as I can to the bedding, and without spooking them out, and get, obviously a good wind where I'm not blowing my scent right into a bedding area, but get as close as I can, because obviously, as you guys know, those bigger mature bucks, they're not usually the bucks that are out there an hour and a half, 2 hours before daylight walking in front of you, unless it's the rut. But especially preseason and pre-rut, those bucks, if they come out during daylight, if they're not nocturnal, they'll be showing up that last 10, 15 minutes of daylight. So if you're too much out in the open and too much into the, maybe let's say oaks or open woods where, yeah, they might be there 30 minutes after dark. If you're too far out there, guess what? You're never going to see them. You'll already be down and walking back to the truck. So I usually try to get as close as I can to their bedding without spooking them out, and get on a main runway where they're going to be coming out to the food source, and then catch them hopefully in that last 10 to 15 minutes before daylight and get a shot at one. So.
Yep, exactly. Kind of the same thing I do.
Yep.
So
it's a common thing. It's just, I feel like a common mistake, like I say, that I feel like a lot of people make, whether it be bow or gun, is I see a lot of people want to set up where they can see 150, 200 yards down through the woods, and I'm not saying everything I say tonight isn't like you have to do this to shoot a big buck. We all know that, it can happen at any point. You have to be in the woods. You can't be on the couch. So if you're out in the woods, you always have a chance, but I feel like there's certain things when you're out in the woods that'll up your percentage to try to get a buck, and especially a mature buck that, in Michigan isn't easy because of how pressured they are. And that's not just Michigan, it's out of state too, but to better your chances, I always feel like you got to either try to access further back and get away from the pressure, if you can. I know a lot of spots here in Newaygo County that I hunt, it's hard to get away from people because there's a road every quarter, half a mile, it seems like. So you can try to walk back in as far as you can from this road. Well, guess what? Somebody's doing the same thing from the other direction, coming in off a different road or a different 2-track, and you meet up in the middle. So, but I would say, a lot of it is just, doing a lot of your scouting, that's huge. Like I said, I was just talking to Ray yesterday about how I was down in his neck of the woods and doing a little scouting down where he helped show me a couple spots last year on public, and just hanging some cell cams, and man, it was hot. I was sweating, but again, it's not hunting season's only a couple months long, but if you want to be successful, hunting season's year round. It's always putting in any type of effort and work you can, and it's worth it in the end when you're holding that buck in your hands, and it all makes it worth it. I mean, I was out there, like I say, mosquitoes yesterday, and there was, I'm standing there trying to figure out what key worked my lock on my camera, and the mosquitoes are just covering my arm, and I was walking through probably 3-4 foot poison ivy, and yeah, it was fun out there. But like I say, I got my cameras hung, and I got a couple doe pictures last night that got sent to me from the camera, and hopefully get a couple good bucks moving through and get excited for it. So
another thing, me personally, I have like 5 different public lands I hunt right here around me. It's not just the one like where I showed you, so a couple of different areas. I know for me, because when I mentioned about like crops, yes, we want to find them coming to the crops, but for me, if I can find bedding, obviously is number one. That's a very big deal, but a pinch point or a bottleneck or something they have to go by, or the chosen path.
Yep.
Is it for me? That's a big deal. I don't know, and like when you go to Ohio, that's a whole different. I'm probably hilly down there and stuff, but that just seems to be a big deal for me on public land.
That honestly, to me, was the hardest thing I had about hunting Ohio. Was it was a lot different compared to. It was a lot of hills with just rolling woods. A lot of big timber, big woods. Not many pinch points. A lot of ravines and gullies and stuff, but there wasn't like the pinch points like you're talking about that I'm used to. Where you got a little funnel or a little, little strip of woods coming into a swamp, where they're going to want to sneak out, because that's what I was saying too about the open woods. Those, you might have the does and the little bucks out cruising around the open woods and nonchalant eating acorns and everything else, but those big bucks, they're smart and they're they're going to stay in that thicket. They're going to stay on the edge, and they're going to scent check everything before they even come out to the open woods. They're going to come upwind, and they're going to work around an area. And once they're good, then they're going to come out. Unless it's the rut, again, we all know how bucks act when there's a hot doe in the area, then they're going to run crazy and do stupid stuff. And that's when you can take advantage of it. But I feel like personally the best time to hunt is the rut, and then even the first week of bow season. I really like the first week of bow season. If you can pattern a buck during the summer right now, you can take advantage and shoot a really nice buck that first week of season. It's going to be hot. You might want to bring a thermocell or something. You're going to be up there, trying to keep the mosquitoes off you, and wear as light of weight clothing as you can to stay, as cool as you can, because it's usually hot that first week of bow season. But if you can pattern a buck right now, and when he's still in that bachelor group, still in his summer pattern, that first week of bow season, you can take advantage and try to get a nice buck if you're willing to, put in the work right now and try to find a good buck. So
that buck right there, first day of October.
Yep.
And it was because I caught him in a pattern, just like you said.
Yep.
It's a very good week to get him, especially on public that first 12 days.
Yep. I was gonna say after usually about that 7 to 10 days of season, especially on public, guys have started walking through the woods and putting scent out, and those big bucks say, "Oh, yep, I remember this. I'm going nocturnal until that pre-rut and rut starts."
Yep.
So yeah, if you can take advantage of that first week, first 10, 12 days, you definitely have a good chance at shooting a mature buck. After that, it gets pretty tough until the rut starts. There's that little lull in between there in October, but
yep. I don't know about you, but October 13th though has always been one of those days for me. That one there, I think I got him on the 13th, but it's like you said, that first week can be killer, and you can put one of those on the wall and go, all right,
yep.
Now I can search for that next one. But yeah, so
yep.
You guys. Bill or Dennis, you got a question for him?
Yeah. Roundabout when do you start sitting all day?
Ooh, I would say around Halloween, usually Halloween, and I might not sit all day with a bow, but I add a lot of time into my sits. I'm going to sit there at least until, probably 11 a.m. compared to, early season. If you're not seeing nothing by 9:30 in the morning, slowly start quietly getting your gear and packing out, but yeah, for sure by October, by Halloween, that's obviously always a special day too in the deer woods. I've shot a couple of good bucks on Halloween and had some good encounters that I didn't capitalize on, but that's always, we all know that's a good time of year to be in the woods. You never know what's going to happen. I actually, this other way, this buck right here, mounted one. That was actually the first buck that I ever shot. It was funny because I had never shot a buck, but I've always been somebody who I try to pass up the little bucks. And even like I say, I had never shot a buck, and I'm hunting public land, and I had this guy on camera above me. I had him all season coming in, steady, but middle of the night, 2 a.m. middle of the night, he would always walk through this little clearing on the edge of this field. I had a scrape and stuff out in front of me, and he would hit the scrape, but middle of the night. And it was, I think, November 3rd or November 4th. He daylighted at noon, middle of the day, walking through. I'm like, yep, it's that time of year. And mind you, like I say, I had never shot a buck before. I was sitting in this spot, but I had my mind set on this was going to be my first deer. I had a couple little bucks come out in front of me. I had a 5-point, a 6-point. I had a couple spikes, fork horns, and I'm sitting there with my bow. And I told myself, I said, I'm waiting to get that 8-point. Never shot a buck in my life. And sure enough, he daylighted there November 4th, I think it was, at noon. And the very next night, I went in there, got in there late, was running late, got in there. I said, I only got an hour and 15 minutes of daylight left, but I snuck in there quiet, got in the stand, and sure enough, about 10, 15 minutes before dark, I saw him coming and drew back and smoked him. And yeah, got my first buck, a nice 8-point, and that's pretty sweet. So
that's awesome.
But that's another thing I was going to bring up too that I like to hunt. I didn't really say was I really like finding a scrape line. If you can find a good scrape line that bucks are using, I like to actually yesterday that cell cam I hung, I made a mock scrape in front of it and put some, piss in it and just to get bucks' attention. They don't really care as long as it gets their smell and they smell something, they're curious about it. They're going to walk up, and if they might start using that mock scrape. If they don't, oh well, it's just getting something to walk in front of the camera just so I can get an inventory of what's in that area right now. I'm not really worried about if they're going to use it or not. Again, it's a lot of this time of year. I'm just seeing what's in the area, something to get me excited about and say, hey, that's a buck I'm going to chase this year. So,
How you feel about scrape drippers?
I personally really have never used one, but I usually just go up and put some in it myself when I'm out there. But yeah, I've actually personally never hung one. But I think they would work good. It's the same thing. So I don't see why it wouldn't, work. So paid sponsorship up here going on.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I hear you there, Brad. I mean, before I became a mobile hunter, I really geared on seeing scrapes, and I couldn't really go on rub lines so much, but scrape lines.
Yeah.
But that seemed to be, if you're seeing live scrapes. Now we have cameras, so I don't use them as much as a lot of people do, but that definitely was I need to be over there, So
yeah, that to me is the nicest thing. Again, I know that not everybody is into the mobile hunting. I know that not everybody is into, going out and spending the money. That mobile hunting isn't cheap. It's an expensive investment. We all know that's doing it. Whether it be the just light stands, lone wolf, or the, or going. I personally, like I say, I hunt out of a saddle, and I got my couple sticks, a little platform, and my saddle. So with all my camera gear and stuff, it definitely helps because I can still pack my, saddle and everything, have that on me as I walk out through the woods. And the best thing about it is, like I say, I can walk into a brand new area, get in there 2 hours earlier than I would want to set up, and I can quickly speed scout through an area. Like you said, find the freshest sign that I can, whether it be, man, here's a bunch of acorns that are dropping, and you can see that they've been chewed up on recently. It's fresh chewings, or some fresh deer, scat on the ground. Like, hey, man, this is fresh. They were in here last night or this morning. Or whether it be a scrape line, man, say, hey, it rained this morning and this scrape's tore up. They hit it after the rain this morning, so he was just in here. So finding that fresh sign and being able to set up on the fresh sign and take advantage of the area, because that's the one issue that I see with that got me to switch to the mobile hunting is, again, I'll say it repeatedly, is these bucks, especially pressured bucks here in Michigan on public land, they don't get big for no reason. They get big because they're smart and they manage to survive a couple seasons. And in Michigan, that's not easy to do. And we all know that. With the Orange Army out there and everybody shooting everything, they see brown, it's down. It gets tough to find a mature buck. And when you do, they're nocturnal, they're smart, so to get onto a buck, when you're hanging a set, a lot of people just walk into their stand every day and sit. And it's the fact that that buck knows that you're there. I'm not saying he won't come in front of you, but he knows you're there. He smells you. He smells your scent. He knows that stands there. He knows your blinds there, whatever it is. He knows you're there. Whereas a mobile setup, if I come in and I try to stay upwind of, like you say, their bedding and stuff, and I come in and I find either a good scrape or a good beat down runway going into a swamp where he's bedding, and if I can stay quiet sneaking in, and if I can hang a set and get that, where he doesn't know I'm there, especially in the swamp. There's some spots in swamps that there might be one tree that you can even sit in the edge of a cattail swamp or something with a couple beat down runways. Guess what? If you can sneak into that quiet enough and get up there, that buck comes walking. It's basically in his bedroom, He's not. He hasn't smelled anybody in there. He's never heard anybody in there. You know, he's walking through his bedroom basically, coming down this runway down through the cattails and whack. You know, you're sitting on top of him and you don't know you're there. Whereas if let's say you're sitting a stand 5-6 times a week, that buck knows you're there. You know, even if he's never seen you there, he knows something's there. He's smelled you. He's heard you leaving and coming out. He knows something's there, and most likely he's never going to show himself during daylight in front of you. So.
Well, one more question for you. How do you feel about calling? Is there a certain time of the year that you start calling, or you just right out the gate?
I personally don't do it out of the gate. Nope. I usually wait until that pre-rut, you know, and then even then when I'm doing it, I don't really get on it too much personally, especially here in Michigan. I've had it's different, you know, out of state is different. Michigan is, we all know how it is. You're 15 to 20 does to one buck ratio here. You know, there's a lot of does to bucks, you know, ratio. You go down to a state like Ohio, it seems like you're $5 to one, or five does to one buck, or 4 does to one buck. The ratio is 10 times better down in Ohio. And when you're down there, you hit a call, those bucks during the rut, they hear, you know, a sound like that, a call, they almost come charging in because they know that the does are limited there, you know, so they hear action going on, they come check it out. Whereas in Michigan, there's so many does, a buck don't even really have to go look for a doe to find one. You know, he doesn't have to worry about, man, am I going to get to breed a doe, you know, because there's so many around. So that's what, hopefully in Michigan, we can lower that, you know, start lowering the doe population to get a little bit and get the, you know, buck ratio back up. And again, I'm not you could call me a trophy hunter, but I still hunt for meat. So it's the fact that, guess what? If I don't see a buck that I want to shoot, I'm looking for a mature doe. You know, I'm not going to shoot a little buck because that 1.5-year-old buck doesn't have near the venison on it as the 3.5, 4.5-year-old doe that he's walking behind, you know? So that to me, if you want to go into stuff like that, is my biggest concern when I see people that say that they're not a, you know, well, I'm just a meat hunter, I'm just putting food on the table. And I see guys say that and try to justify why they shot the little spike horn or the little fork horn that's a 1.5-year-old buck. And to me, it don't make much sense, because if that was the case, why didn't you shoot that 3.5-year-old, 4.5-year-old doe that was walking in front of it, you know, that had 2 times the meat to fill your tag with? You know, it would have put way more venison in your freezer for the family. So I'm hoping that we can either, you know, kind of getting off topic of public land, but I'm just going on a broad speech about Michigan, is I hope that we can get to more, either, you know, whether it be a 1 buck state or, you know, APRs, and try to get more people to start saying, hey, like, I'm going to shoot that big doe over there and let that little fork horn or 6-point grow up and see what he turns into next season. So, because that's what's crazy about Ohio, is you go down there, and I'm public in Ohio, and it's crazy to me. I hang cameras and go into a spot and, you know, just look at Onyx and say, man, this looks like a good pinch point, throw out a cell cam. And I swear I had one last year, it threw out a cell cam, and 2 days I had a 160-inch buck walking in front of it, you know, like crazy, you know. It's because those bucks down there, like I say, people have to pick and choose because they only get 1 buck tag, you know, even the residents. So you better pick and choose what buck you want to fill your tag with that season. So
that's Ohio.
Yep, in Ohio. Yep.
Yeah, I have yet to hunt out of state, but if I'm going anywhere, it's going to be Ohio, because I'm only hop, skip, and a jump from it. I'm down by Metro Airport.
Yep.
I just got. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just got back from, like I say, I was down in Cleveland, Ohio for the past week. They had a couple tornadoes hit down there, and I'm a lineman, so I was down there doing storm work, getting the power back by Cleveland. So we were driving around down there in Ohio between jobs and stuff, and then in the evenings heading back to the hotel after work. And man, it was crazy. I just driving down the highway, looking out in these fields in the evenings, and I saw a couple just tanks, you know, out in these fields. All I could see was rack. I don't know how many points they were because I was driving, but just see racks sticking up on their heads, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Yep. Now, Dennis,
Yeah.
on your part that you asked him about deer calls,
Uh-huh.
I'm a deer caller from day one.
Yep.
I have a different opinion on that, and it's I know the one right here. He came into me just literally just vocalization, and I tried to just do like a doe grunt, not a bleat. And I take that. I always say I take this tube off. You can hear the difference. For some reason, that duck weird call, it attracts them. But for me, that works for me. But they do come and alert it. They do come and alert. But if you're set up with windage right and all that, hopefully they're not circling you and stuff. But I've had that work a million times just because it's a way of vocalization for me. That's what I do. But like Brad said, down there with their rules, they have less doe, so the bucks are really, especially during the rut, they're going, dude, there's a doe over here. But up here, my wife and I were out taking pictures of you guys seeing it on Facebook. There was one field, there was like 30 deer maybe in it, and I think there was 2 bucks, and the rest were does.
Yeah.
I mean, so to Brad's point, it's like year and a halves might come. I get a lot of those coming in, a lot of year and a halves in the early season, if you're anxious to get one. But I don't know. For me, I just feel like it might just help me a little bit, and I've just always stuck to it. But a lot of people are like, man, you're crazy trying to call them. Yeah, that's just what works for me.
Yeah. My uncle, he does that. He calls right from the get go. But myself, over the years, I've noticed they keep pegging me when I start, doing any kind of calling. I don't call at all anymore until around the 25th, 26th of October.
That's a really good point
just
too.
for that reason.
I like that point though about pegging you, because they see they come over to an area and they just heard something from here and they're looking around like, why is there nothing in this spot? I just heard something. I had a buck do that a couple years ago. Yeah, might have been last year. And a buck, he came in and man, he came in running. He heard my call, but once he got into where I was at, he stopped and he pinpointed where the call came from. But then he stopped and he was behind some brush, so I didn't have a shot. And he stood there looking around and looking around and looking around. And I was sitting there with the camera on him, and I had my bow ready. And he needed to take about 3 or 4 more steps, and I would have drawn back and taken the shot. But and finally he's like, nope. And he turned around and bounded right back where he came from. So,
well, to that point, I'm not out there doing this. I'm not running.
I'm
deep,
trying to, but it's not really working. So.
Whoa, we can hear you, Tim. But I'm not out there hammering on buck calls. I'm trying to make a doe bleed or grunt for vocalization. But I get it because I've been pegged in a tree many a times. But it's worked out other times. So each their own.
Yep.
Do you ever hear anybody out there on state land playing them things like they're part of the band?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Plenty of times. It's actually funny. I'll tell you a quick little story about Ohio. My first trip down to Ohio I ever hunted down there. I went down there and got into a good spot in the morning, felt good. A lot of sign, a lot of rubs, scrapes, tore up on a big ridge, kind of a big bowl ridge. Went around like a little horseshoe. And that whole gully was just lined with scrape and sign coming up from an ag field in the bottom on the private, coming up onto the public on this ridge. And man, it looked really good. And I got in there and I was sitting there and man, it was about 30, 45 minutes after daylight. And I heard some crashing coming like up on the ridge above me. And I'm all grab my bow, get the camera out and everything. And I'm ready. And I'm sitting there and it's getting closer to the brim, closer to the brim, closer to the brim. And I'm ready, and all of a sudden, bam, here pops a guy over the ridge with a green Menards bucket with a crossbow, and he's walking down the edge of the ridge 45 minutes to an hour after daylight, and he walks the whole brim all the way around the top around me. And I'm sitting there just watching him like, are you serious right now? Come on, man. And I'm trying to like get his attention, like, dude, I'm sitting right here. And he walks the whole rim of the ridge around me. And he finally gets to the end and he crests over the edge. And same thing. All of a sudden, I just hear him light up some rattling antlers. Just it sounds like 280-inch bucks going at it. You know, it ain't no tickling antlers. It sounds like two of the biggest bucks you've ever seen just crashing antlers as hard as they can. And so I'm annoyed now. I'm like, yeah, I'm just annoyed. I grab my rattling antlers out of my bag and I just start going hard on them too. You know, I'm like, all right, you want to do it here. I was just mad. And I just sit down and I'm kind of sitting there just irritated, you know. And
So
as
you
I'm
guys are playing back and forth?
yeah, basically, yeah, doing that. And it wasn't 5 minutes later, and I hear a branch snap to my left. And I just like look down to my left, and there's just a beautiful 10 points, probably 150-inch 10 point standing at 30 yards straight to my left. And I'm like as I turned, you know, it was one of those where as I turned and seen him, he immediately, for some reason, I don't know why, he just turned and looked right up at me and pinned me. So
Right,
here we are,
locked eyes.
yeah, here we are sitting there having a stare off, and I'm sitting there with my bow still hung up on the, you know, hook, and I'm just like, I knew if I reached for it, you know, I was done. So it was just one of those where you just hope, cross your fingers that he puts his head down. But yeah, he bounded about 40, 50 yards up the ridge, and I got to sit there and watch him walk straight away from me. But,
Man. Yeah, it's fun out there on state land.
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to hunt a little bit more of it this year.
I was going to say, I've had a lot of people that, you know, I've looked into it. You know, I've thought about maybe getting a lease, you know, whether it be down in Ohio or even southern Michigan, trying to find a lease or something. But to me, I don't know. I can never justify it because of the bucks I know that are on public land. You know, there's giants on public land, especially where you get into some of these spots where, you know, you can get access to where, you know, it's tough access. You know, like I say, I do a lot of that too. We go down to Ohio, we access some of the public, me and the guys on the crew hunt with, we go down and we access by boat, you know, to where the only way you can access the public is by boat, you know, by water. It's all landlocked. There's no public access other than the water. So we drive in there, we park the boat in the morning, we scoot up and get in there and see what happens, you know. So whether it be that or I got a couple spots here in Michigan that you know, right next to the road, you might go 100 yards and then there's a river. I'll bring my waders and I put my waders on and I cross the river and I get across the river and I take my waders back off and I sneak up in there and hunt, you know, and I come back at night. It's a lot of extra work, you know, especially when you're hunting with cameras and filming, you know, that's a lot of extra time and effort when you're carrying all that gear and stuff, packing it in there. And there's days where, you know, you get out and you're like, man, I didn't see nothing, you know, man, I did all that work for nothing. But guess what? It eventually pays off. And again,
yeah,
as we all know as hunters, when you finally are holding that buck, everything you did before that was worth, you know, worth it. So I forgot too, I was going to say, we talked about doing it, but I've been seeing some comments of people that are on. I don't know how many people are on right now, but I know, like I say, I was going to do a couple giveaways. Got a couple beanies here towards the end of the video.
Nice.
So a couple Wildgame Pursuit beanies, and then I don't got any right now, but this is just a kind of a preview. We're gonna get some more made in the cricket, but window decals and stuff. So
somebody fire away with a good question for Brad, and we'll go through them and see what's up.
Yeah.
So they can win something.
Whoever's watching, throw some stuff in the comments. Get some.
I mean,
chat.
You know, we'll get a little more.
Can't see it. I'm blind.
I'm reading that comment right there, but so like me and Brad down here or wherever we go, obviously we use Onyx. I love Onyx.
Yep.
But it's like Brad said, you honestly, for me, I have to put my feet on the ground. And it's miles and miles and miles of I can see an area and go, man, that might look like a pinch or some bedding or whatnot. And, I have to go look at it first.
100%.
I can't just go on a whim. I look at it and I'll go scout. I just think that's big on public land because you don't want to go in blind.
It's not. Yeah. At least having looked at the map, like you're saying. Like you said, I've gone into spots where it could look like the best pinch point or best public land I've ever seen, on the map, and then I get in there and it might not be nothing that excites me. I might, whether it be, like I say, I brought up earlier about, man, there's a lot of just other hunters in here. There's stands all over. I'm not going to try to get in. I don't like sitting right on top of somebody, personally. To me,
Brad, can you see the comment?
Jordan's got a good question here.
Yeah.
In your opinion, is it harder to hunt small acreage pub ground in a patch where there's high pressure or big timber sprawling? What's a CF? What do you mean CF ground?
Cornfield?
Oh, cornfield ground. Oh,
maybe or CF field.
That's what I thought, but I'm not sure. That's a tough question. That's a tough
Commercial
question.
forest.
Commercial forest.
Okay, commercial forest. Okay. So it just depends on, I guess, the spot to spot. That's a tough question. I have a hard time, like say, hunting big timber. It's not easy. You have to really, to me, big timber is a lot harder to hunt than, that's kind of what I brought up about Ohio. A lot of the places I was hunting in Ohio was just big timber. It was oaks and hills and rolling hills, and and everything looked the same. It was hard to see exactly where they bed because they'll just bed. A lot of, if you have never hunted Ohio has a lot of briars. There's just pickers and briar bushes everywhere. You'll go across the top of a ridge and it'll be briars and pickers, and they'll have their little runways down through it, so it makes it tough. Or you can kind of see their ways, but that open woods hunting is tough. I like kind of hunting small acreage, with private around it and stuff like that. That to me is personally what I like to find. And then, like I say, I brought up earlier too, is just finding thickets and the pinch points that me and Ray talked about, and swamps. Like I say, I love, if I had to choose a spot to hunt on public, I personally love river bottoms. River bottoms to me, where those bucks, you can get down in there with them on a river bottom, and those bucks like to travel a river bottom. And if you can find some ag nearby or some good food source that they're traveling in and out of this river bottom, that to me that's what I like hunting.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that, Brad, but Tim is a perfect one because he hunts massive commercial forest.
Yep.
Don't you?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's definitely so coming from the Thumb area, that's where I started my roots hunting. That's a whole different ball game as opposed to what I'm dealing with now in Sheboygan County. So, Lapeer State Game area where I, planted my roots in this awesome sport we enjoy. That's smaller tracts of public land surrounded by private, or there's game refuges, surrounded by. So those deer, what I found is I would kind of hunt the corners of the public land because they would cut through. If you could find some good cover, they're going to go to cover. And that was the best spot to go down there. But up here, my God, they can go wherever they want. You can pinpoint a really good spot and think you got it down pat, and then they're traveling 400 or 500 yards over, just because it's an easier travel route. So it's a tough call, and the biggest thing I found, the biggest adaptation is, and I don't know what you guys have covered, but just you got to put in the groundwork. Sounds like you guys have talked about onyx and all that, and I utilize that to find food sources and water sources and cover and all that, because no matter where you're hunting deer at, they need those three things. So if you can find those things, you stand a better chance. But it's a whole different ball game up here, and you really gotta really pick and choose where you're gonna hunt up here in these big timber forests. So I find it's tougher up here than what I was used to down in the Thumb area. I had a lot more opportunities at deer up close down there in Lapeer, but you know, up here I'm finally starting to get it down pat, I think. And the biggest thing that I found is always be scouting. Like anytime you're walking in and out, look for trails, look for new fresh sign, and then hunt it. That's kind of the go-to up here. You know, hunting this big timber is just you find the sign, you got to hunt it.
Yep, because the area here in Newaygo County, I'm kind of a mix of, I got areas where it's, you know, because I'm here in the Manistee National Forest, so it's, you know, there's some big chunks of public land here too, don't get me wrong. You know, it's a big area of public here, so that's what I've got to grow up hunting on a lot. And but it can be, there's areas here where, yeah, it's kind of just open oaks, you know, and I've hunted in there with my dad and growing up and stuff, and seen some big bucks and shot some big bucks in there. And then I've gone to other areas where, like say, I try to get down in the little chunks next to the private land and hard to access spots and next to ag and stuff like that, and get into some river bottoms. And it's a toss up. You know, I there's big bucks in both. I do think though that the open woods and the big woods is a lot tougher to hunt. You really have to know your area and know where the deer travel and stuff compared, because even to me, it's always harder too. If you know, you hunt big woods, it's hard to, sometimes even the runways are tougher to see, you know, and see what the beaten down path actually is. Whereas when you go into those wet areas, you know, the swamps and the cattails, you can see, man, this one, you know, all the fresh tracks in the mud, and you can see this is the beat down trail right here. But I've always had a lot more luck hunting the open woods on the scrape lines, you know, go up and find a good, you know, old skidway or an old, you know, just a nice ridge top, and it's just beat down with scrapes going right down it, you know, and he's got that scrape line and set up on it, and 8 o'clock in the morning, here he comes checking the scrapes, you know, coming right down it. So you're muted, Ray.
But I'm ready.
You're muted.
Somebody
Ray.
do a voiceover.
Yeah. Tim, you went into mobile hunting last year, pretty heavy. And
yeah.
So your big timber, how did you find, because you got a nice buck, but what did you find? Was it a ridge? Was it some kind of was there even a bottleneck, or what was it?
Yeah, so I found that spot actually scouting. It was probably March or April. I don't remember exactly when, but when there was enough snow melted that you could actually, you know, trek through the woods again. And I just found a whole lot of deer sign there, and I found historical sign from probably the 2022 season where, you know, I found rubs and scrapes, and so I started pinpointing those on Onyx. And there was a bunch of oaks, and it was a nice ridge. There was a good ridge line, and I kind of hunted the bottom of that ridge because that's where most of the sign was. And, you know, that's how I kind of came across that. And then, you know, being that mobile hunter, that opens up a whole new world to you. You don't have to find the perfect tree and get that stand up in that perfect tree. These new setups, man, you can hunt just about any tree. You know, they don't have to be perfectly straight up and down. They can be cockeyed, you know, whatever, forked, whatever. It's kind of cool how you can set them up. So I actually had a couple different stand locations that I could pull my stand down and move to a different tree. And, you know, where I shot that buck at on Halloween last year, I actually saw a bigger buck probably a few days before I shot that one. And then I got a crack at him on November 14th. And, you know, I blew it. But, you know, if I wasn't a mobile hunter, I probably wouldn't have been in the right location because I would have had to hunt the spot instead of where I needed to be. You know, if that makes sense. You know, I was always limited to where I could hunt. Even a climber, you know, technically you're a mobile hunter there, but even a climber limits you to where you can hunt and what trees you can go up and down. And I've had to compromise my hunting in the past just to go, you know, where I could go instead of where I wanted to go.
Yep. And the biggest thing I like about what you said there was not only the move on the fly, and that's what Robert's saying there in the comments too, you know, it's the thing with big timber and everything else, but it's the fact of you out there. That's what we kind of talked about. What we hit on at the start of this live was about how hunting season is only a couple months long, but you know, the work that leads into it is it's a year-round sport. You know, it's a year-round thing that goes into it. And you being out there, like you said, when the snow was just melting and finding that sign, that's like you said, it's one of the best times to scout is as the snow is melting. You can find those beaten down runways in the snow. You can still see the rubs good, you know, whereas when you're scouting in the middle of the summer, those rubs are really, you know, dead, you know, and you can't really see how was this last year, was this the year before, you know, historical rubs. So like you said, when you're out there in the middle of winter, you can see those good runways in the snow and just where deer are moving even late season, you know, whether it be late bow or muzzleloader too. You can know for this year too that they travel through their late season, because as we know too, in a lot of spots, certain areas are better for different parts of the year. Sometimes if you're next to ag, well, guess what? They cut that field. It might be really good early season, but it might not be a good late season spot. After that food source is gone, those deer might move on to this neck of the woods 2 miles, 3 miles away, you know, and travel over there during late season. So that's another thing too that we haven't really hit on, is just different spots for different season, you know, and because that's another big thing too. I've kind of been talking a lot about bow hunting, but once you start getting into that, you know, after that first week of gun season, those deer change up a ton too. You know, obviously we all know they go nocturnal. And I brought it up earlier, I watch a lot of people, even a week into gun season, be sitting out in the wide open where they can shoot 300 yards down through the woods. Again, not saying that you can't get deer that way, but those big bucks, if you can see 300 yards down through the woods, most likely those big bucks aren't going to be walking through there a week into gun season. And I watch it happen all the time. And I'm like, if you're going to set up, I don't care if you can see 40 yards with your rifle, you know, or your shotgun, whatever you can use. I would recommend being in a spot where you can, you know, those big bucks are going to be cruising through a thicket or a swamp and you can get a shot at, you know. One of the best quotes I like is, you're better off to set up really good on like one runway compared to half-ass on 2 runways. You know, a lot of people always want to say, well, I can see that way over there and I can see that way over there. I'm going to set up in the middle. Well, guess what? Sometimes it's better off to set up 100% on this one good runway and focus on that, because sometimes when you're sitting in the middle, you know, one comes flying through or one's way over here. It's a long shot now with your bow because you wanted to try to get in the middle of something. Sometimes that hurts you too.
Yeah.
What did we do? Lose 2 guys?
Yeah, I think so.
We lost them.
At the same time.
Yeah.
Well, I know Tim's area where he's at is a little sketchy. There he is. Talked him right up like the candy man.
Yep.
Yeah, I apparently don't have a great signal here, so sorry about that.
Well, we didn't know because we lost you and Ray at the same time, so it's kind of weird.
No, I'm at the campground if you can't tell, and yeah, I don't have a good signal here. You go like 2 roads over, 2 sites over, and I got 5G full service. So I don't know. I'm in a bad spot here apparently.
Gonna have to make sure to mark that site for next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of nice. Yeah, I don't know if you guys think I kind of came in and you guys were talking about calling deer and stuff. Did you guys talk about calls and all that already?
Yep, Ray.
Yeah, I already did.
So I know Ray and I have a pretty similar, you know, technique that we use. We do a lot of calling. A lot of people would call it overkill, but it works. I don't. Did you go over that, Ray? Like your calling style? Okay.
I did, and you know, Brad explained that he's. Where did I go? I lost the host, Shaya. It blanked out on me. Anyways, so Brad's not a firm believer in, you know, calling early season because they do detect you, the deer do, and you might spook them, and it's not like Ohio where there's a lot less does and the bucks are more apt to.
Lot better buck to doe ratio.
Yeah, so here you got like Shay and I went out the other night. There was 30 does compared to 2 bucks in one field, and I mean I can call in a small buck any day, but I just like the vocalization part of it. That's all. So if they hear something that's natural to them, but to each their own. That's just what I do. But I've been busted a lot. Trust me, I've been busted a lot. So, I mean,
because personally,
Yeah.
Ray, like you said, it's up to the person if they want to do it.
Right.
Again, just because I said that I don't personally do it,
Oh, no.
I know the success you've had with it.
Yeah.
And I know that it will work.
Yeah.
It might, even if it works 1 out of 5 times. Guess
Yeah.
what? You got yourself a buck.
Yeah.
Like I said, I called in a lot of little bucks here in Michigan with it early season, but
Yeah.
I usually just wait. But that's me, and a lot of it too has to do with I feel like you have a good understanding of what you're doing when you're calling compared to some guys go out in the woods and say, oh, well, I seen guys hitting these things out in the woods and they got big bucks. So they run out there and you hear the noises some people are out there making. And so
that's a great point. When you get really good at being in the woods, you hear what the deer are doing, you hear the sounds, you have to know their vocalization. You have to know it. You don't want to go out there going crazy on a call because deer are going to be like, what what's that? But
it's the same as turkey hunting. If we want to bring that up, turkey hunting's the same way. The more you turkey hunt and you sit there and listen to a hen barking back at you and mimicking her noise back, and you sit there and talk with her back and forth and get to listen to a turkey, just even plucking and clucking with each other, and they're out there purring and everything else, and you sit there and can mimic it with your call back to her. The more you hear it in the woods, the better you get at calling.
Yeah, absolutely. Dennis and Tim can vouch for that. They're both good turkey hunters.
Yeah, I was going to say I pretty much stick to contact grunts. I don't care what time of year it is.
Yeah.
Early season, late season, rut, pre-rut. I just stick to contact grunts and just one single contact grunt. Directional. I do it this direction, whatever. I go around all around me basically. Just a real soft contact grunt. But the biggest thing I would caution anybody that's wants to try that is you better be on alert, because you've just notified any deer within earshot that you're there and they're coming to check you out. So you better have your head on a swivel, because like Ray said, I've been busted many a times. Because you just, you know how it is. You get out in the street, you get bored, you get whatever, you start thinking about stuff, and then you clink a noise or you stand up because you need a stretch, and then there's a deer right there that you didn't even see that you just called in. So just if you're going to try that tactic, you definitely need to be on alert, 100%. They're going to come in early season, or if they've been a little educated, they're going to come in, high alert, and they're going to be looking. Maybe the rut, they're a little more, the mojo's going, so they're going to be a little more sloppy. But that's the biggest advice I'd give you is just, if you're going to try that technique, you better have your head on a swivel and be looking.
Yep.
Hey, Brad, have you ever used decoy?
I personally haven't. Nope. Not just for the fact of, again, public land hunting. If I was on a field, like on private, I mean, I know they do make some lightweight decoys out that you can use on public, and whatnot. But I personally haven't used a decoy. I do think that, like you say, if you can use one, for sure, because that, just the visual that a deer sees, that sometimes is the difference, especially if you're, like we were just talking about, calling, that a deer comes in and sometimes holds up at 50, 60 yards out and tries to visualize and see something before they actually fully commit into an area. If you had a decoy out, there's a lot of times that, it would have brought them in that last 30, 40 yards into your setup, but sometimes those big bucks, they come in and, like I say, they're going to A, come in downwind usually, and B, they're going to try to get a visual on something before they actually fully commit. But
myself, I just picked up a decoy a couple years ago. I've had a couple small bucks come in on it, nothing major yet, but it even kind of, it seems like they're weirded out by it more than they are wanting to come up and check it out. They're kind of skirted a little bit, but I don't know.
I've seen mixed reviews, like you say, on that. I've seen some videos where guys, they come in there and, a buck will dive into them. If it's a, buck decoy, or if it's a doe decoy, they'll come right into it. And other ones, like you said, where they're more kind of skittish about it and almost know something's up. So
Yeah, I've only been hunting with a little tiny doe. I don't have a buck decoy yet. But yeah, they seem to, last couple ones kind of boogered up on it and just didn't come in all the way, didn't commit. But we'll see. Maybe this will be the year.
Yep. That's what I said. All it takes is
Anybody
one time.
watching use a decoy?
How many people are on?
That's something I've been interested in. I'd like to hear some comments about that. Decoys in Michigan, what do you guys think? Do they work? And if you use a decoy, what are you using? 3D, 2D? What do you guys use if you use one in Michigan?
I have a ton of luck during muzzleloader there, Nicholas, right here in central Michigan. But one of the best times of year for me to hunt. Most definitely. That's why I own a couple of them. I love it. Now you can use any gun, but Brad, do you take a set of antlers around November with you? Rattling antlers?
I actually was going to bring that up. I do like to bring rattling antlers, and kind of like I was saying about the guy in Ohio. I don't do that normally. I was just messing with the guy up on the ridge with I called him the green Menards bucket guy. But anyways, I like to bring them, but all I do is I literally just click, just sound like, because when you, again, have seen real bucks, especially here in Michigan, we don't have a ton of giants out here. So you try to mimic, again, what they actually sound like when bucks spar, and I watch so many guys take rattling antlers and, like I say, just crash them together, especially in Michigan. That's not a common noise that these bucks hear. Do they hear other bucks sparring? Just that kind of click, and click, rattle out, click, just kind of doing that, just a softer, and I might do that for just sound like two bucks came out and hit their antlers together for, even 10 seconds, and that's all the noise that you need. You don't need to get on these antlers, especially those rattling antlers, they echo down through the woods a ways. They reach out pretty good. So just that little noise of it sounds like two bucks might be just over here sparring with each other. That could be enough to draw a buck into you. So
yep.
That's my opinion on that. But,
yeah, myself, I do like right around the 25th.
Yep.
That last week, October, I'll tickle them together just ever so slightly.
Yep.
But yeah, after that, or once that first week in November comes in, I'll hit them a little harder, but I'm not out there blasting them.
Yep.
So I got a question for you too, Brad.
Hey, before
go ahead.
Before you ask your question, let's give away one of these hats.
All right, man.
How about this black one?
There you go.
So if whoever's watching, I'll throw a number on this paper so you guys, I'm not cheating or nothing. I didn't text anybody any numbers, but I'll write a number between 1 and 50. So if you want to throw a number in the comments between 1 and 50, whoever's the closest, I'll get you this hat sent out to you. So, all right. So whoever's watching live, go ahead and throw a number between 1 and 50 in the comments, and we'll wait. Actually, Ray, if you want to start talking.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is there a particular tree you're looking for, or a size of tree you'd like to be in to maybe I don't know, for me, I'd like to try to be in a certain size tree that what am I trying to say? Like, I don't want to be in I don't want to be in a Dan Enfalt tree. I want to be in a tree that's, Dan Enfalt. So, I guess that's kind of, for me, that's a good question for you because I need to know that. You know what I mean? Because what's your thought on that?
I personally, again, some spots, how it is. Some spots you might go into an area and based on the wind or the sign there. I've been in a lot of spots where there's just no good tree. It's tough to find any tree that actually looks, good. And you sit there and struggle with that. I've been in a lot of spots like that where I'll sit there and walk around an area and I cannot pinpoint a good tree. You know, it's like, but if I can find one, like you said, personally, I like a tree that splits. You know, maybe a couple maples come up, you know, one of those cluster type trees where you can get in there and, you know, you got that seclusion.
Yeah.
And then the nice thing too about obviously the saddle is what I like to do is I can, you know, set up my platform on the backside of a tree from where I think the deer are coming from. So that way, as I'm hanging in my saddle, basically, let's say a scrape's out here, I'm right-handed, I'll kind of set myself up kitty corner on a tree to where I'm hanging off the tree. And basically, as a deer, the way I think the deer are going to come in, I can basically use that tree, you know, as seclusion the entire time.
Yeah.
The tree in between the deer. I'll have my camera arm out here and I'll be recording.
Yeah.
And I'll sit there and use the tree as cover until he comes to where I can draw back and, you know, get a shot at. So, but yeah, definitely any tree that's got some cover up top, whether it be, you know, a cluster of maples, whether if you can find a good white pine, you know, a good pine tree in there or something with cover, because we all know how it is. Some trees just don't got cover and you get skyline pretty easy, you know. You come in and you might not even move. I swear, especially some deer, I don't know. There's like they got eyes in the top of their heads. They'll just be walking, you don't even move, and they just pin you, you know, and you're busted. But
Yep, that's what I wanted to hear because that's what I try to do. Even though I don't do a saddle, I use a fixed tree stand. Believe it or not, I try to hunt on the back side of the tree. I hunt. I don't want the deer in front of me if I don't have to. Literally, I want them to come through behind me.
Yep.
So that I can go like this because I'm hidden by that tree.
Yep.
And some might not like that, but I'm like, dude, I gotta have them when they come in. That's how I got my deer last year because they did come on head on, but they come behind me, and I was like, oh, I got lucky.
Yep.
But cool.
But yeah, let's give this hat away. Try to see the comments here.
Got a few of them there.
Everybody's gonna think we're cheating, Ray. Your wife literally picked my number down to the dime.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, 22.
Oh, Shay, that's her birthday, 10/22.
Okay, well that makes sense. 22 is my favorite number, so
nice, Shay. You want it.
So I guess Ray's wife wins that one. And
it's not going for me.
Put it up on your wall, Ray.
I have another one from Whitback.
You got one of my hats there.
Yes.
Ball cap. Yep.
Yep.
So I'll give away a couple of these decals too. I don't know. Let's say two of them. So the two people closest to a number now. I don't know. Let's do. We'll do between now 50 and 100. That way the numbers are separated in the comments.
There you go.
And I'll put it down here. So I don't know what number I'm going to pick now. I don't have any favorite numbers between 50 and 100, so I got to think of something good.
That's crazy that Shay got that. Come on now.
That's what I said. They're going to think it's rigged now, but
it's not rigged.
So yeah, I'll give away two of those. I'll send out two of those decals to whoever, the two closest people to the number I just wrote down between 50 and 100 in the comments. So anyways, I know you guys have been asking me a lot of questions, but what's your guys' plans this year with public land hunting? Like, you guys getting all motivated and pumped up for it?
Yeah, I actually, as soon as I finish the work here, at the end of my street where I'm hunting, I got a little piece of private land that I get to hunt in suburbia, but I'm heading out to Jackson County, actually Waterloo Rec area. And yeah, I'm going to be hunting a lot more public land this year. For sure. It's been a while. I've kind of stayed away from it the last couple of years, but I miss it. This one spot I got picked out, been going there pretty much my whole life, and this will pretty much be my last couple of hunts out there. I don't think I'm gonna be going out there no more. It's too much on the old guy.
Is that where we went?
Yep.
Yep, that's a tough walk back in there.
Yeah, I gotta try it, man.
Brad, did you see that comment by Robert?
Yep. prefer a morning sit or an afternoon? I love hunting mornings. Morning hunt for me is always.
Yes.
I love a good morning hunt. You know, get in there, try to sneak in as quiet as you can before daylight. You know, and especially those kind of spots I've been talking about where you're in between their food source and the bedding. You know, because usually they're out in the bedding, or they're out in the food source when you're sneaking in.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can get on those runways and those pinch points coming back into the bedding in the morning, it works out way better. Because obviously, like I say, I've had way too many nights where, you know, we all have as hunters where you're sitting there in the evening and it's getting dusk and you can barely see, and all of a sudden you hear coming, you know, but you can't see them. You know, they didn't get there in time. So that morning hunt, you know, when you can sit there and hopefully catch them coming back into their bedding, that to me is what I prefer. Whether it be that or whether it be scrapes, I've always had a lot more luck with bucks coming in hitting scrapes in the morning than in the evening. So
100% can agree more. 100%.
Yeah, I've had some great mornings.
Dennis, you've had some great mornings.
Oh, I've had some great mornings. I love to sit out there. I mean, even if I don't get the shot, it does me good just sitting out there. I don't care if I get them or not.
For me in the morning, I've been probably 50-50 on the deer ratio, maybe a little more morning, but there is nothing better than getting out there in pitch black, dark, and you're in your tree, and things are just starting to come alive.
Yep.
And it's like, wow, you know, and then all of a sudden, oh, they're right there, you know. But like Brad said, at night, so many times have I had them come in where you're like, dang it, it's just too late, you know. Or
you can just, all you can see is the silhouettes.
Yeah.
All you can just see, you can see the silhouettes going under you, and you're like,
I got
that could be a doe, it could be a buck, I don't know.
That buck right there came in at night, like we're talking, and probably not a shot I should have took, but I got lucky with the schwacker, Dennis, that did not deploy, but it went through and it got him in the lungs, and it was. Gosh, I wish it was the morning because I wouldn't have had to make that decision. But yes, mornings are the shit. Oh, with the stuff. Oops, my bad. Sorry, Tim.
Make sure you guys get some numbers in. Right now, there's only 2 comments, so
get some numbers in for Brad's giveaway.
50 and 100 for 2 decals. So right now, the 2 people who commented would get both decals. And guess what, Ray? Your wife would get a decal too. So 50 and 100. I got a number wrote on the pad. If you guys throw a comment in the comments of a number between 50 and 100, we'll see who's closest.
So
I'm gonna do it from my laptop over here.
Yeah. If you win,
got my other phone. But no, Brad, you were asking, you know, what are we doing to prep? I've been taking some cruises on the road with the wife, myself, been glassing fields, a lot of driving, a lot of looking, a lot of, I haven't really been in the woods much. I did go last weekend in the woods a little bit, but just that's how I'm looking at inventory right now. And I know often crop fields are going to be in those areas, so
that's a very good method to bring up too. You know, if you're in a spot like you are, Ray, where there's a lot of ag around your public lands, it's how can you beat just being able to drive around some roads and be able to just glass them and say, well, I know just because right now they're on a private land field, or some of your fields down there are public too.
Yeah.
But some people, you know, it might all be only private, but the edge of the field is public, you know, going in.
Right.
And
huge.
That's a great way to scout during the summer, and it just gets you excited, like you said. To be able to just drive around and see some big bucks standing in the fields, man, it gets your heart going and thinking about, you know, here in a month and a half of being out there bow hunting them. So,
yeah. Basically, other than I'm shooting a lot of bow and tournaments and dialing in with my fletchings and broadheads, and the gentleman here, Jay Larson's talking about broadheads. Well, my traditional, I'm using I'm going with Havoc products this year on my traditional. That's my traditional, but we use rec broadheads. Well, some of us do with our my compound. So that's what I'm doing, and I do mechanicals with my compound. So they've been pretty daggone good for me. So.
Yep.
What are you shooting, Brad?
I had always shot Rage. You know, again, I know some guys that, you know, don't like mechanicals. I had always just shot Rage. I never had a problem with them, you know. But again, if you want to hear my real opinion, I don't think that broadheads are near as much as what people make them to be, you know, because I've gone out before and I bought a 3-pack of cheap Allen broadheads from Walmart and shot a deer and it went 20 yards and crashed. You know, if you put a good shot and if you practice during the summer and make sure that you're shooting effectively, and, you know, obviously we're all sportsmen and want the deer to not suffer, you know, make a good shot. Well, guess what? It starts during the summer. It don't start October 1st and get your bow out of the case and say,
Right.
well, I'm good for the season. You know, it starts July, August, and I'll go out too. One of the biggest things I'll do too is I'll shoot low light. I'll go out in the last 15 minutes of daylight and shoot at my target. A lot of guys don't do that. They like to shoot in the middle of the day. Well, guess what? That's fine. But how many shots are you actually shooting at deer where it's broad daylight? You know, some, but not, there's a lot of shots that you're taking where it's low light conditions, and you need to be able to make a shot on a low light shot like that. And obviously, and know what you can shoot. Don't be one of these guys that goes out in the woods and sees a deer at 60 yards and just puts their 40-yard pin a little high over his back and lets it fly. You know, you gotta put in the work and time to make it, because again, we're all sportsmen and we're not out here to make these animals suffer. You know, we want them to be a clean kill and to harvest it and go out and find it and, you know, get it out and use the meat and everything else. So, yeah, that I've shot that, but then I was talking about Rage. Well, then I actually just last year I started shooting the QAD broadheads. They're a fixed point, and I mainly started shooting them from when I went out to South Dakota doing a spot and stalk public land mule deer hunt. Just for the fact that obviously out there, a lot of the deer that you're stalking are bedded down, and they might be in some of that shrubs and tall grass. So obviously I had to go to a fixed blade to be able to shoot through some of that grass and stuff, and without, you know, a mechanical deploying early. So I went to a fixed blade there and 125 grain. And I do shoot a heavy arrow setup, you know, the big push on heavy arrow setups. I do have an insert in the front of my arrow to just because it all makes sense with kinetic energy, you know, having that punch up front. If you do catch the shoulder or hit a bone, that it breaks through, you know, whatever it's hitting. I do agree with everything that they've said on that, you know, FOC front and center, putting the weight up front and having more of a punch compared to a lot of guys wanting to start going for a super light arrow and just trying to shoot super speed out of their bows. Well, guess what? When that arrow hits, it don't pack a punch, you know, and it'll either it deflects easy or it hits a shoulder and just stops. It don't punch through a shoulder. So,
yep. On Brad's point, this is one of my trad arrows. That right there is 100 grain brass insert right there. A lot of people are doing outserts now, but with 100 grain and 150 grain head on there for a trad,
yeah,
that's whacking them.
that's a punch. Yeah, a deer's not going to like that when it gets hit.
No, it's going to blow through them. So now compounds, probably what, a 400 spine? What's your spine arrow?
Oh, my
300?
350, I think.
Yeah. And then what do you got on your front?
I think it was 100, just like yours, insert.
And then 125 grains.
125, yeah.
Yeah, you're smacking them.
Oh, yeah, it hits. I mean, that I shot for anybody that didn't know, or if you've seen the post, that a 10-point that I shot that was in the picture that was shared on Facebook there. I shot that last year down with Ray And Ray took me into a couple spots down there. I had never hunted it, so was scouting and actually ended up getting lucky. It was one of those where, again, you put in all the work and sometimes it don't pay off. Sometimes everything goes right. It was one of them days where everything went right. It was the middle of the day. I hunted in the morning down there. I told Ray I was going to go around and check out a couple other spots, and all I was going to do was actually go onto the opposite side of the road from a spot that he showed me. So I was looking at it on Onyx. I'm like, man, it looks good back there. There's a cornfield and stuff. And I was like, I want to go way back there. And I was going to quickly hang a cell cam just to, because I planned on being down there the whole weekend, and it was only Friday, I think. And Friday afternoon, I planned on being there the whole weekend. I grabbed my
we were supposed to hunt together.
Yeah, supposed to hunt together. I grabbed my camera and I throw it in my backpack, park on the edge of the road, on the edge of the public, jump out. I go about 150 yards down the edge of this cornfield. And I'm just walking nonchalant, down the edge of this cornfield. I still had a long ways back to go. And I looked to my right, and it was kind of some tall grass on the edge of this kind of flooded river. And I stopped and I hesitated. I'm like, I saw something white. And I stopped and I'm looking and I'm like, man, that looks like deer antlers. But, we've all been there too. Everything starts looking like deer. Everything starts looking like antlers. And I stand there and I'm looking at it and I'm looking at it. I gave it 10, 15 seconds and it didn't move. And I thought to myself, yep, it's just a stump up in there or something. And right before I about gave up on it, I saw antlers turn. I'm like, oh, that's a buck. That's a good buck too. And so I literally pulled out my phone, put a pin on Onyx, so I knew exactly where I was standing. And I turned around and quietly ducked down and walked back down the edge of the private and the public, ran up to my truck, grabbed my bow, didn't even throw my camo on. I had a camo shirt on, wearing khaki long pants, grabbed my bow, couldn't find my release in the truck. I'm scrambling, finally find my release. I'm like, man, I got to go. I don't know if he's leaving, what he was doing. I sneaked back up in there and I got back. I'm looking at my phone. All right. Yep. He was right here. And he had moved a little bit. And I stood there for a second. And then I finally seen him. And it was flooded. Like I say, that whole area in there was flooded wet. And
Terrible.
And I started wading through the water, and the water came up over my, muck boots, and it was up to almost my crotch. I was wading through water, stalking up on this buck. And he turned, and I knew what he was doing. I don't remember the exact day, Ray, what day that was, but it was definitely during the pre-rut. It was that.
I know when it was, but I'm not going to tell nobody.
When it was? I didn't say where it was. I said when.
When? I know when.
Oh,
it was only like 3 days. 3 days after I killed my buck.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there and it's that rut. So I'm like, I could tell by the way he was acting. I knew he had a doe bedded down right there in front of him. So I'm stalking up there, and I had like this flooded tall grass river, and he's on a little high mound up on this grassy spot, and on the other side of the river actually. And I'm wading, and I got one tree I'm using as cover. I'm like walking through the water trying to keep the tree in between me and him. And unfortunately, I didn't have anybody to film because it would have been sweet, but I had my GoPro filming and on my head. And I got up there, and I told myself, if I can get to that tree without spooking him, I'll be at about 40 yards. And I felt comfortable making that 40-yard shot. And sure enough, I got up to that tree without spooking him. And every time he would pick his head up, I would stop and wait, and it seemed like an eternity, but I finally got to that tree. And yeah, I stepped off the tree and I drew back, and he stepped out, and I held it. And there was some brush. And I didn't feel comfortable making that shot. And I let back down, and I thought, man, I hope he don't smell me or spook. I gave up that shot, and I waited, and finally he took a couple more steps, and I drew back again, and I held it right there and just took that last deep breath and boom, let it fly. And it was one of those where, I had the Luminoc on my arrow, and it just 40 yards, all the practice went into it. I felt good. I took that last breath. And I watched that arrow arc out there. And like I said, that FOC at 40 yards, it punched him. He mule kicked up in the air, and he ran 25 yards, and I watched him flop. It just right behind the shoulder. I mean, I couldn't have walked up there and placed it any better. It was just one of those where everything that could have went right. And those are those hunts where everything I've been saying all day is about, like getting way back in and finding this. I shot that buck 150 yards from the road
And
walking back in at 2:00 in the afternoon to hang a camera.
yeah. Yep. And to like what Tim was saying, every time you're in and out of the woods, because you already hunted in the morning and you wanted to go scout the other side.
Yep.
And all of that happened because you've seen it on NX and you're like, man, this might be good over here.
Yeah.
And bam.
Yeah, I could have been sitting in the truck. I could have been relaxing, playing on Facebook, saying, well, I'm going to wait till 3 or 4 o'clock to head back into the evening set. I could have been doing that, but I wanted to better my odds and say, you know what, I'm going to run back in here quick in the middle of the day, and I'm going to go try to hang a cell cam to see, get some more inventory or maybe get a couple new spots and get, boots on the ground and eyes on a spot. That's the main thing I wanted to do. And sure enough, it worked out. I got yeah, he's right here. This is him right there. That's him. That 10 point that I shot down there. So
Beautiful.
Yep, nice buck.
So we got a question from Jay Larson. What's everyone's opinion on elevated hunting or ground hunting? For me, I need to be in the tree, but I do know friends that hunt from the ground and do very well. Particular, maybe a crop field or get in a pinch where you can really hide your blind. It's just a preference and a preparation, and like one of my buddies right here down the road killed a monster buck in a pop-up line sitting on a little swampy spot. It wasn't public, it was private, but I mean, it was a tank, and I'm like, this was a couple years ago, and I'm like, dang, you got that thing out of the pop-up? He goes, oh, yeah, man, come through with the dome. So it's just preparation, in my opinion. But for me, I need to be mobile on public, and that's what works for me. But like you say, it's 2 weeks their own. It's whatever. Because I know, Dennis, you hunt ladder stands and stuff, right, Dennis?
I hunt them all pretty much, except for the mobile hunting. I hunt the ground blinds. But what I've learned over the years is your chances go through the roof up in the tree, man, compared to being on that ground.
Yeah.
But
it's not easy.
But the new box blinds they got now, the real nice ones, to be honest with you, you got them windows closed. I mean, your scent level is like down.
Yeah.
I mean, take the good with the bad, I guess, or whatever you prefer. I like to be elevated more than I do to be on the ground, because you can see them coming from a long way away and don't get that surprise, like 5-10 yards.
Bow hunting, I like to, obviously, like I say, hunt out of the saddle and stuff and up in the air. Gun hunting, I'm a big fan of, building a little makeshift blind. I don't personally like hunting in pop-up blinds unless it's rainy or crappy weather to keep my camera equipment dry, just for the fact too that you can't see that full 360 around you very good. So I like to just find a good good tree to sit up against and either grab a couple stumps and build a little makeshift blind around me, or just a little cover, and I have hunted from the ground a couple times with a bow. Obviously there's some spots, I said, actually the spot that I just hung the camera in last night, really good spot down by Ray, and it looks really good. But it's one of those spots, I was looking at it already last night, or yesterday afternoon, and it was one of those spots where I didn't see any trees that would work good. It was one of those I was looking at, and it's tall grass, like tall swamp grass, and it was one of those where I was looking at it like, I'm going to have to kind of build a little makeshift thing here and kind of cover this whole little swamp area, with the bow. If I go in there and try to sit it with the bow, if it's getting some good action. So, but yeah, with the gun, I personally, with a gun, definitely prefer sitting on the ground. Mainly, you can get a good, rest on something, to get a shot. And then there's obviously you can shoot a lot further down through the woods sometimes, on the ground. You got some lanes down through there sometimes through some trees that you can shoot. Whereas when you're up in the trees, you got all those limbs and branches. So.
Tim's got a question.
Keep wanting to move on. Do you come back to it later, or you're really wanting to hunt it? Oh, I guess to me it really depends on how bad the deer was spooked. You know, did they see you? You know, did they like completely bust you and make eye contact with you, or did they come in and just get skittish and smell something and say, hey, something's not right, and back out? You know, a lot of that depends on how spooked was the deer that you spooked. Was it the deer that you're hunting in there, or was it just a random deer too? You know, because just because you spook one buck, there might be 3 other good bucks in that area too. So if you just back out of a good area, I wouldn't leave. If you find a good area, don't leave a good area. That's one of the biggest things too about hunting, is if you're in a good spot, don't get me wrong. This gets me all the time because I'm an overthinker. I overthink a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of times where I'll be sitting here and I'll be in my head, you know, playing stuff out like, man, what if I was over here? What if I was over here? You know, especially opening day. I hate opening day gun season because I'll second guess myself on where to sit opening day 20 times. I'll sit there and, well, maybe I should sit on this, especially because I've told you guys about how much public I've scouted and hunted. I know a lot of good areas around me, you know, so it's always one of those where it's like, where do you sit? You know, and then your cell cams, they're a godsend in one aspect, and then they just make you mad in another. When you're out there in the morning and your cell cam starts going off from the spot over, you know, and you're sitting there getting pics of a nice buck standing there in a scrape or something, and you chose not to sit there that morning. So, but I personally, if a buck's not spooked that bad, I would go back in there. If I know there's other good bucks, I'd go right back in there. I wouldn't back out. I know some guys give up on a deer and say, you know, if you spooked him good, or if you shot at him and missed him, I'd give it a week or two before I went back in there. But if you know there's other good deer in there, then I'd keep sitting it if you know you're
in 100% what Brad said, because some of the areas I hunt, I have definitely spooked the deer going in, or scouting on my way out or whatever. But with the multiple bucks in the area, it's not every buck.
Yep.
So I'm still hunting that area. As long as the wind's right, I'm going to play it. Now, that's worked for me and worked against me, but there's one other thing I wanted to say too about public land hunting. Look for the overlooked areas.
Yep, that's a good point.
Okay, I mean, we're giving up all our what we've learned over the years, you know, but there are spots that are overlooked. It might be close to a road. It might be close to a parking lot. It might be, you may not have to go real deep.
Yep.
Because other people are going deep, and here you are. So don't underestimate what these deer do, because I've got a couple overlooked spots that I'm hunting.
Yep.
And I do very well in them.
Yep, very good point.
Yep. So, Brad, did you get any, anybody picking them numbers on your last little deal there? I didn't see.
I was going to ask,
Bill?
going to ask,
Bill?
What if any more numbers came in? Like I say, all I had saw at one point was 2 numbers that people picked. I see people commenting comments, but nobody actually threw out some numbers between 50 and 100. I saw 2 comments between 50 and 100. So
okay, I pick 100.
Dang it, it's 100 now.
Right? Don't give me nothing. I don't need that.
It's rigged. So yeah, last chance if anybody wants to comment a number, so at least somebody has a chance. If you guys just jumped on, I see a couple people just jumping on right now. Actually,
somebody just put 77. Jay Larson.
Okay, 77.
By the way, Jay, thanks for hanging out with us through this video.
Yeah, thanks for everybody that's on. I see a lot of people that I know, that a lot of my friends and family and stuff that are all on here tonight. So thanks for jumping on if you guys are on. Appreciate you guys coming and hanging out and having a good chat. So, but yeah, if anybody else has a number between 50 and 100, 2 closest numbers, if you guys weren't on, I'm just going to give out 2 of these Wildgame Pursuit decals. So, and then at the end, I'll give out one more gray beanie here, Wildgame Pursuit. So, but yeah, what else?
So
we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
Everybody, if everybody's for everybody that's been sitting here listening the whole time, you guys are probably itching to get out there now on some public land and put it all to work.
I mean, quite frankly, I've been hunting public land for 32 years, and Josiah picked 82. But I used to hunt a lot of private land and had some awesome private land to hunt. But don't be afraid to go hunt public land because it has a lot to offer. The unexpected is there, and the jubilation when you do succeed is for me, that's what really works. I mean, turkey hunting, my deer hunting, there's deer there. There's beautiful deer there. There's beautiful turkeys. You just got to do your homework. And I'm willing to travel a little bit. I go around. And another thing, I've been very successful because I hunt 5 different properties of public land. I don't hunt the same herd of deer. I'm hunting different properties, different public lands. So that's why I have a huge success ratio. It's not because I'm in one spot, which I can do, but I move around a bit. So
Yep. I agree.
I really don't have much more to say.
We've touched on it all, and every point, whether it be, all of you guys are bringing up good points. It's not. It don't have to be one way, like you said. It's not. You don't need to mobile hunt. Do I think it helps? Yes. You don't need to, like you said, you don't need to go a mile back into the woods. Do I try to get back in? Yes. But like you said, a lot of overlooked spots that are close to the road. You just got to find them. You got to put in the effort and say, man, there's some good bucks right up here by the road. They're worth hunting. It's just being in the woods. That's why I said earlier, you can't shoot a deer on the couch. You got to go out and be out in the woods and, make it where you put the effort in. And it don't matter. There's some nights, like I said, that when I shot this buck up here, I only had an hour before dark, and it was one of those where it's like, hey, I got my camo in the truck. I'm going to sneak in there quick. And, sure enough, it paid off. You don't have to go in there and say, man, I didn't have enough time or, whatever. If you can get in the woods, you got a chance,
Yeah.
So, for that number for the decal, I think I seen 2 people. I mean, it's 81. So I know he said July 82. So now they're really going to think it's rigged. So, and then I saw somebody else pick 80. I can't remember who it was, but whoever else picked 80.
So one for each.
Yep, one for each. So Josiah gets a decal, and then whoever that picked 80. I saw you click it up on the screen.
So
Sean Tober.
Oh.
So Sean, if you can message me personally on Facebook, Brad Atwood, or message the Wildgame Pursuit page, I'll get your shipping info and get you one mailed out. So,
one more thing before I leave. This might sound weird when it comes to public land hunting because there's a lot of pressure, obviously, especially down here. I always try to. I don't want this to sound weird, but I always try to out hunt the other hunter. And what I mean by that is they may come in and be in the area that I've been looking at, but I'm going to go the extra step around them. It may only be 150, 200 yards. That's why we play this game out here. What's he doing compared to what I'm doing? And I always look at, there's a guy over there about 200 yards. Not a bad spot, but I'm not going to be far. I just try to hunt the other hunter, and I don't mean that in a weird way. Yeah. I'm just saying it's what's worked for me. Yeah. So.
Yep. And then too on public land, like I've met some guys that I stay in contact from hunting. Look out for each other. It's a brotherhood out there. We're all out there doing the same thing. I've met some great guys through hunting. Obviously Ray and all you guys.
Yeah.
I've made a lot of great friendships and stuff, public land hunting or just the hunt community.
Yep.
So you guys gotta I know a lot of guys that I've met, like say through mobile hunting, through public land hunting, that become really good friends and help each other out. And I'll give intel to people. I seen a good buck this morning. I'm not worried about it. Just as long as you can tell that they're a good, genuine hunter, that isn't gonna move right in on top of you. But you can usually tell by talking to somebody for 5 minutes if they're a decent person. So be a good person.
Totally, 100%. Social media, some people don't like it, but I've met you guys, Brad, Dennis, Bill, all our team, all through social media, man.
Yep.
And just by being nice and offering my acknowledge, and you vice versa, you guys vice versa, and it's like we all make friends, man. It's cool.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. When do you think we should wrap this up? It's getting late.
Yeah, we got one more hat to give away.
Oh, one more hat?
Last hat. So let's do so again, it don't get mixed up, between 100 and 150 now for the last giveaway. 100 and 150. I'll write down a number to give away, send out that last hat to somebody, and then wrap this up and get ready for hunting season here. And what'd you say, 48 days?
48 days, fellas.
Counting down.
6 weeks almost, man. We're ready to rock.
Big time.
I'm ready, man. Like I say, I got that itch. It's it's that time of year where, especially now, I'm sure you guys have had it too. These cold evening or cold mornings. You wake up and it's that cool, brisk morning starting already. And
I mean, Brad did help me drag this out of the woods because I'm old and I couldn't get it out of there.
That was a fun drag.
Yours was even easier.
Yeah. I'll have to post that video up still because I got to get that video up. Yeah.
That was sweet because it floated right on that little creek. I was like, look at that thing go.
Right down the creek, just floated right down. I just walked him with my waders, just like
right. I couldn't believe it when you texted me that day at work. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
Look at that buck.
Actually, at 2:00, like Ray, I just smoked a 10-point.
I got out of work and I'm like, I'm hauling them out. I'm heading there now.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Literally, Ray pulls up on the road and I'm standing kind of on the edge of the creek channel going back in the woods. And I'm like, here I am. See me?
That was cool.
One of the first deer I've shot from the road, or where you could see the road, see the road. That was crazy.
Yeah. It was awesome.
But that's that, again, it's like you said, it's just being out there, being in the woods. It's, I love it. I love hunting season. I love being out there. I love putting in the work. I love scouting, I love everything about it.
That's another thing about public land. All of that prep work, it just adds that much more. It just makes you be like, so look at how I reacted when I got my bike. I literally didn't know when Brad was over there like, hey, Ray. And I went, well, I'm over here by that bush on the other side. I'm like, I don't see no blood or nothing, I'm just a negative Nancy. And he already seen a daggone deer. And I went, oh, there it is.
Hey, what's the thing about that, Ray?
That reaction was priceless.
Oh, yeah. That's that real reactions, It's
that's that real Ray Dancer is what you got.
Yeah, sure is.
We were tracking it, and it's funny. I don't want to sound bad to Ray or nothing, but Ray was worried, and I don't blame him. We all are. Here, he was worried, and the blood it was hit and miss. It went from one spot where he was really good blood trail to another spot where we were taking our time and having to find some blood. And I kept telling him, like, Ray, this deer's bled a lot. I think you got him. And we went to a little spot there where we were trying to figure out what way he went. And I looked around the corner on some briars and small brush there, and I could see him laying there. And I was glad to get the camera out and make sure to get your reaction on that one.
Yeah. I went around that daggum bush the other way, and I'm like, gosh dang it. I thought maybe he'd cut across here. And Dad's like, Ray, I got some blood over here. And I come around that corner, and I was like, oh, man, there he is. No way. It was cool.
Yep. And like I say, that to me is, again, same thing I talked about earlier too, with the whole, I wasn't the one who shot that deer, but I was on, cloud 9 with Ray, helping him get his buck, and helping him drag that deer out and make sure to get some, good action pictures in the woods there, with this deer and everything. I love that part of it. I love being in there and getting the nice pics right in the woods, where you found your deer and then
and that's
getting video and
same thing I did when I tried hauling the mail to you, because I was like, I got to go out there and I got to see this, man. I got to be there. It was so cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Love it.
And just watching that footage for me, to be honest with you, the first time I seen it, it got my heart racing. I was excited and shaking for him when I seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reaction was priceless, man.
Did we get any numbers in the chat?
We got one.
We got one.
Jake.
If we only got one, I mean, I guess he wins. Like,
He gonna win.
I mean, we'll throw it out there one more time between 100 and 150 to make it fair, just to give it one last chance, I guess. That way.
You got a couple minutes here because we keep talking about our own adventures here.
I was just saying, right now, Jay Larson's like, just end it. Just end it.
Yeah.
that guy's been on here the whole time.
I mean, yeah, he is deserving of it.
I decide, give it to him.
That's fair enough to me. He threw a comment.
Let's close it.
Yeah, Jay Larson. If you kind of, like I say, either message me on my personal Facebook or the Wildgame Pursuit and get you a hat sent out to you. So,
all right,
it was 113, so you are the closest because you're the only comment. So.
There you go. Hey, Brad, we really appreciate you coming along, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
We respect you, buddy. And I'm looking forward to another good season. And I know I'll see you up here.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be fun, man.
Yep. Appreciate it, guys. Again, thanks for having me on, and hopefully we all have a great season. And it should be a good one. Whether you're having a good season or a bad season, it's better than being at work and all that. So
absolutely,
they're all good seasons.
All right, y'all. I'm going to check out.
All right.
Peace.
Alrighty. Well, appreciate everybody for watching. Hey, we covered a lot of topics tonight. Brad, it was awesome having you on. We appreciate it. And then I believe we're doing another live in 2 weeks to discuss our deer herd and, just opinions on it. So don't forget to check that out in the coming weeks. And aside from that, check out, don't forget to check out Brad and the Wildgame Pursuit. Watch his videos, see what he's got going on over there. And aside from that, guys, you guys ready to call it?
Yep.
Sure. Thanks again, Brad.
Yep, no problem.
Peace out,
See you
man.
guys.
Later, guys.
Bye.